hold here on your account for Scottsdale, and then by tomorrow, all your other holds will fall off because accounts do update overnight.
Okay.
All right. Did you have any questions?
No, as long as I was taken care of, should be all good now.
Okay. I do see you do have a hold on there, and it says to contact the administrative department.
Yeah, Mike, I saw Mike, you just wanted me to follow up after everything, so I was just going to follow up with him, and then should be good after that, I think.
Okay.
No, I think that'll be all. Appreciate your help. Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Talk to this fuckwad. This little slimy little piece of shit. Let's see. I don't know if I have his number or not. Mr. Mater, you little fucking rat. He's a good guy. He's trying to do the right thing. He's going about the wrong way. It's an inconvenience. Basically, this guy made a decision with this much information and this much was going on, and then like this, I'm like, people should not have authority over the people. They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Leave a message, and we'll call you back.
Hey, Mike, just wanted to follow up with you, letting you know that I took care of any of the fees that I had for that ICDC situation. Yeah, just following up, I can go ahead and send you an email too. That should all be taken care of. If you need to give me a call back, I still heard that there was like a hold on something. So that the other thing I need to meet was to follow up with student services or the dean, and I mean, I remember you mentioning to follow up with yourself, so I was doing that as well. And then if you need to call me back, my number is 480-815-0460. I'll send you an email as well. My email is qwebb0921@gmail.com. All right, bye. Frick. All right, what else do we got? So this is a whole separate thing that, yeah, the Maricopa County School District is getting fined for this as well. They owe me money as well. So we're going to be coming for, I think it's at least a few thousand racks, or at least a few $1,000s that they owe me back. And then there's another separate issue that I kind of forgot about, but you know what? Fuck them for that too. It's the fuck you fascist surcharge. And so they're owing me maybe, I think it was like, can't remember what the total for that other thing was. It was like $15,000. But yeah, Maricopa County School District coming for that. So y'all owe me money. All right. Due for testing today. Yep. U.S. government gets a fine of $1,000 for the inconvenience of that. Because otherwise I could be busy working on the conglomerate, the coalescence, and basically saving the fucking world. As long as you keep me away from what I'm doing, people are suffering and people are dying. And yes, U.S. government, you fucking charge for that. Yeah, that's a bit long. I did also list Averhealth's name on there too, because, just listing everyone who's complicit. So listing all accomplices in these crimes. Crimes against humanity. I know I said that weird, but I mean that shit. Happy 4th of July? Fuck you, it's not a happy 4th of July. We should not be celebrating freedom when we're subjugated. We are oppressed. Celebrating shit. Fighting for shit. Fighting for true freedom. This country's not free for shit, man. It is not. We're all prisoners here. I can't fucking leave even if I wanted to. That's so fucking sad, man. I don't even want to fucking be here. But they're like, no, you got to be here. You're ours. I'm like, no, I'm fucking not. I'm like, I am not yours. We're not my people either. I don't give a fuck what happened to your country. Like Nero playing the fiddle, watching Rome burn. Anything happens in the U.S. and be like, you get what you deserve. Uh, today. Yeah, any officers that are getting involved, I'm making sure to mark their names as well. Any law enforcement, any judges, any lawyers or prosecutor, all of them are going on the list, just to be, because they're complicit in all this inconvenience, all this stuff, just because government made us a mistake. Well, not even the government, it's like literally just law enforcement. Like an officer was dumb as fuck, made a mistake, filled out a report wrong, now it's coming at my expense. And the rest of the government's just fucking playing along and going with it. So I blame them too. It's like they're complicit. And so, yeah, everybody's name's going down on file. So either at the bare minimum, people are going to get fired, fined. I don't go for imprisonment. I don't care how much you wrong me, man. You don't get imprisoned unless it's a violent crime. Violent crimes are the only ones that deserve imprisonment. Yeah, Mr. Dave Morley, Gabby Maturena, it's like two of them on here. Sheriff, I need to get names from there. I got a couple on my file already. Prosecutor, the judge. Everybody just kind of contributing to all this inconveniences, and all this. I say inconvenience, but I'm like, I feel like a very light word for what I'm talking about. Like it's preventing me from fulfilling the mission. It's taking me off my path to help the world. I genuinely want to help you, man. And then these people just keep on trying to get in the fucking way. And then morons. And I know they're ignorant, like they don't know what they do, but at the same time, like that doesn't mean that there's no penalty. There will be a penalty. And so, yeah, all these names, everybody who's complicit, anybody who takes even a fraction of a second away from me, that deviates me from what I need to be doing over here, you're going to pay the penalty. You're going to be fined, fired, something. Ideally not in prison because I haven't been subject to any violence or anything like that. But yeah, terminating government employees and heavy, heavy, heavy fines. at the bare minimum. So, got names on the list. Not forgetting anyone. Everyone will pay their dues. There's a reason we write things down.
I'm out of the office until July 13th in the
So you're still not working because you feel like you deserve a vacation for some reason? Just government employees just being lazy, don't want to fucking work. That's all it is.
I will be out of the office and return Tuesday, July 7th. Please leave me a detailed message and I will contact you upon my return. For emergencies, please contact me trial services green phone number at 602.
Even the other one, the backup one, I'm supposed to call out of office because I want to fucking work because they're lazy as shit and incompetent as hell.
5627. Thank you.
At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
I'm reaching out for Gabby May-Terena. This is Quentin Webb. I was supposed to call in like once a week, and so I was doing that. If you need to give me a call back, my number is 480-815-0460. I guess any update I can give you is checking in for Aver Health. Supposed to be doing that today. Also did that the other day. I have dates and stuff like that, so if you need yeah, just kind of keeping up with everything I need to. So, and doing school in the meantime, trying not to let any of this stuff get in the way of my actual work in school. So I'm just doing my best here not to. Anyway, so yeah, just following up with everything, doing what I'm supposed to, and just giving you a call. So if you need to call me back, call me back. But otherwise, just gonna need to get back to work. So thank you and bye. Fucking kind. I'm sure you think you're a great person, but you're just fighting for the wrong cause. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Don't get angry, get even. All right, go. 16. All right, finally, after all that, 16 minutes later, 16 minutes of fines against the government. Well, I mean, I just kind of broke down the fines. It's calling the sheriff's office, Aver Health, and everything like that. So I just lumped it up. I think it's probably a total of, I don't know, $1,100 or $1,200 fines just from that alone. So yeah, it's fine. But the reason like it's sounds a little excessive is not fair. If it was like against a person, yeah, it'd probably be like $10 or something like that, or like in total will probably be like a couple $100. But against the government, we multiply that by 10 because of the institutional surcharge, because it's like a Goliath stomping on the people. And I'm the only one mentioning it. And so there's obviously, if I'm the one mentioning it and finally bringing charges against them, then it's obviously affected other people as well. So because of that retrograde affect or something like that, what do you call it? So because of previous effects are foreseeable. Anyway, so people in the past that were most likely affected, they're being charged again because it's a crime against society and all of humanity, what they're doing. So they need to be charged extra. So another, was it 1,000% or times 10 penalty. So because you're an institution, this big giant thing, feeling like you're righteous or doing the right thing, but going the wrong way about it and not doing anything right, somebody needs to put you in check. And so there needs to be a significant, heavy fine levied against you. So even the government can learn their lesson. David can take down Goliath. Weird thing is, I'm not even trying to take you out. I'm just trying to fix the issues. And you guys seem to not want to work for shit. So you keep on getting in the way. You guys say you want to do the right things, but don't actually do the right things. So, like, I'm just making the world well aware. And letting you know you can't get away with it. Here we go. Finally able to actually be fucking productive. Sorry, these goddamn people get in the fucking way. They'll be put in check. I'm just pissed right now, but not getting mad, getting even. We're fine. Fine. We'll bring charges against them. Materials and labor costs. Materials costs Materials cost flows and documents. Describe and record the flow of materials costs in job order costing. Let's continue with our Road Warriors example. It began March with $1,000 in raw materials inventory and $0 balances in the work in process inventory and finished goods inventory accounts. The flow of materials costs in Exhibit 19.4. Okay. When materials are received, employees count and inspect them and record the items' quantity and cost on a receiving report. The receiving report is used to record materials received in a materials ledger card. Materials ledger cards are perpetual records that are updated each time materials are purchased and each time materials are issued for use in production. Exhibit 19.4, materials cost flows. We got receiving reports. That goes to materials ledger cards. Materials ledger cards either go to direct materials or indirect materials. For direct materials, we got materials requisition sheets, job number in the job cost sheets. For indirect materials, we have materials requisition sheets there, and that leads to factory overhead ledger. Materials purchases. Road Warriors purchases $2,750 materials on credit on March 4th. These raw materials include both direct and indirect materials. This purchase is recorded below. Each materials ledger card is updated for the purchased materials. So we have on March 4th, debit to raw materials inventory of $2,750. Accounts payable credited for $2,750. And that is the purchase of materials for production. For materials use or requisitions, Exhibit 19.4 shows that materials are commonly requisitioned or requested to be used on a specific job. In other words, direct materials, or as overhead, in other words, indirect materials. Direct materials are costs that can be cost effectively traced to individual jobs, such as alarm systems. Indirect materials are costs that cannot be cost effectively traced to individual jobs, such as the cost of electrical tape and glue. So like offices and stuff like that, factory maybe, not directly going onto the product. Direct materials costs flow to job cost. Direct materials costs flow to job cost sheets. Indirect material costs flow to the factory overhead general ledger account. The factory overhead account is a clearing or temporary account consisting of indirect costs. 19.5, Exhibit 19.5 shows a materials ledger card for an alarm system. The card shows the part number and the reorder quantity. For example, 2 alarm systems were purchased on March 4th as recorded in receiving report C71. After this purchase, the company has 3 alarm systems in inventory. Exhibit 19.5, the materials ledger card. I got materials ledger card for Road Warriors, got the name, item is alarm system, part number is M3, and we have date. So we have received, issued, and balance. Under received, so we have the date starting first, then we have receiving reports, units, unit price, and total price. For issued, we have requisition, units, unit price, and total price, and balance, we have units, unit price, and total price. When materials are needed in production, hold on, double check, make sure any comments or this says something went wrong in the comments, but maybe it's not allowing comments for some reason. YouTube's getting glitchy. Something's wrong with YouTube. When materials are needed in production, a production manager prepares a materials requisition and sends it to the materials manager. For direct materials, the requisition shows the job number, the types of materials, and the quantities needed. On March 8th, 1 alarm system was issued and recorded in requisition R46. After this requisition, the company has 2 alarm systems in inventory. Exhibit 19.6 shows the materials requisitions for job B15, job B16, and job B17. For requisitions of indirect materials, the job number line might read for general factory use. Requisitions often are accumulated by job and recorded in one journal entry. Road Warriors records its materials requisitions as follows. Direct materials requisition for specific jobs, job B15, B16, and B17 are 700, 800, and 300 respectively. Total direct materials is 1,800. Then that's added to the March 8th work in process inventory. That's 1,800. And then that's debited and credited is raw materials inventory for 1,800. For the use of direct materials. Exhibit 19.7 shows the postings to work in process inventory and raw materials inventory general ledger accounts. The exhibit shows summary job cost sheets for all three jobs, and it shows a detailed partial job cost sheet for job B15. Exhibit 19.7, posting direct materials used to accounts and job cost sheets. Raw materials inventory account began the month with $1,000 of beginning inventory. It was increased for purchases of $2,750. The $1,800 cost of direct materials used reduces raw materials inventory and increases work in process inventory. The total amount of direct materials used so far is $1,800. The total amount of direct materials used so far, which is $1,800, is reflected in the job cost sheets. Later, we show the accounting for indirect materials. At this point, we know that requisitions of indirect materials are not separately recorded on job cost sheets. Analytics insight for supply chain AI. Construction companies need a reliable supply of raw materials. High raw materials costs and a shortage of suppliers can delay product completion and reduce income. For years, supply chain employees spent hours collecting price quotes, contacting suppliers, and scheduling materials deliveries. The AI revolution changed that world. DigiBuild developed a model powered by ChatGPT to automate the construction supply chain. Instead of an employee spending several hours and only reaching a few suppliers, AI can contact hundreds of suppliers in a minute, process quote information, and automate orders. Nice. Need to know, reporting direct materials. All right.
Prepare journal entries to record the following transactions of a manufacturing company. Purchase $1,200 of materials on account for use in production. The journal entry to record the purchase of materials on account is a debit to raw materials inventory, $1,200, and a credit to accounts payable. Use $200 of direct materials on job 1 and $300 of direct materials on job 2. The journal entry to record the use of direct materials on the jobs is a debit to work in process inventory for the total $500 and a credit to raw materials inventory. $200 of direct materials were charged to job 1 and $300 of direct materials are charged to job 2. The job sheets act as a subsidiary ledger to work in process inventory, the control account. The total of direct materials debited to work in process is $500 and we credit raw materials inventory. Compute the ending balance of raw materials inventory. Its beginning balance was $200. Beginning raw materials $200 plus purchases $1,200 equals raw materials available for use $1,400. We subtract the $500 of materials used to calculate the ending raw materials inventory balance $900.
$1,200, payable credited for $1,200. For the ascertain raw materials and then purchases on credit, so accounts payable. This represents purchase of materials on credit, locked in. Work in process inventory is debited for $500, and then, oh, that's step 2. So work in process inventory once it's being produced, debited for $500, and raw materials inventory credited for $500. This represents the use of direct materials. And then finally, step 3, ending raw materials inventory equals beginning raw materials inventory plus raw materials purchases minus direct materials used. Okay, so 1 minus 2, okay. Labor cost flows and documents. Describe and record the flow of labor costs in job order costing. Exhibit 19.8 shows that labor costs are, what the fuck, I'm literally in the middle of reading, I'm not, so it's such an expiring soon, I'm like literally scrolling down fucking McGraw-Hill website. Exhibit 19.8 shows that labor costs are classified as either direct or indirect. Direct labor costs flow to job cost sheets. To assign direct labor costs to individual jobs, companies use time tickets to track how much time employees spend on each job. This process is often automated. Employees swipe identification badges and a computer system assigns employees hours worked to individual jobs. It's got Exhibit 19.8, labor cost flows. We got time tickets, direct labor, that moves to job cost sheets. And salary contracts or time tickets is indirect labor, moves to factory overhead ledger. Indirect labor includes factory costs like supervisor salaries and maintenance worker wages. These costs are not assigned directly to individual jobs. Instead, indirect labor costs flow to the factory overhead ledger account. Exhibit 19.9 shows time tickets for jobs B15, B16, and B17. Exhibit 19.9, time tickets, ticket number, March, name, employee number, job number. Okay. Time tickets are often accumulated and recorded in one journal entry. For March, Road Warriors' direct labor costs total $4,200. So we have direct labor traceable to specific jobs. For job B15, it's $1,000. Job B16 is $2,000. Job B17 is $1,200 for a total direct labor cost of $4,200. This is moved to work in process inventory, which is debited for $4,200 on March 31st. Then a $4,200 credit to factory wages payable for the direct labor used. The entry for direct labor is posted to the work in process inventory and factory wages payable or cash accounts. Exhibit 19.10 shows these postings. The exhibit also shows summary job cost sheets for all 3 jobs, and it shows a partial job cost sheet for job B15. Exhibit 19.10, posting direct labor to accounts and job cost sheets. Subsidiary got job cost sheets. Time tickets are used to determine direct labor cost, or $4,200 to assign to specific jobs. This is the total amount of direct labor posted to the work in process inventory account. After this entry is posted, the balance in the work in process inventory is $6,000, consisting of $1,800 of direct materials and $4,200 of direct labor. Later, we show the accounting for indirect labor, which is not separately recorded on job cost sheets.
A company started 2 jobs in June, Job A1 and Job A2. Time tickets for June report 270 direct labor hours worked at a rate of $20 per direct labor hour. Job A1 used 150 direct labor hours, and Job A2 used 120 direct labor hours. What is the cost of direct labor on Job A1's cost sheet and on Job A2's cost sheet? Job A1, 150 direct labor hours at $20 per direct labor hour equals $3,000. Job A2, 120 direct labor hours at $20 per direct labor hour equals $2,400. Prepare the journal entry to record direct labor used. The total amount of direct labor charged to the jobs, 270 direct labor hours at $20 per hour, $5,400, is debited to work in process inventory. The credit is to the liability account, factory wages payable.
Then overhead cost. Describe and record the flow of overhead costs in job order costing. Unlike direct materials and direct labor, actual overhead costs cannot be cost effectively traced to individual jobs. Still, each job's total cost must include estimated overhead costs or estimated overhead costs. Overhead process. Accounting for overhead costs follows the four-step process shown in Exhibit 19.11. Or 19.11. Managers first estimate what the total overhead costs will be for the coming period and how to apply those costs to jobs. Managers cannot wait until the end of a period to allocate actual overhead to jobs because they need more timely information in setting prices and monitoring job profitability. Journal entries for actual overhead costs are made during the period. At the end of each period, the company closes its overhead account. It's like a clearing account. Remember that. Exhibit 19.11, four-step process for overhead. We have one, set predetermined overhead rate in the beginning of period. And then during the period, we have 2 and 3. For 2, we apply estimated overhead to jobs. 3, record actual overhead. And then finally, at the end of the period, step 4, we close overhead. So we have the predetermined overhead rate, which is moved to the overhead rate and this other applied overhead formula. Okay, so the predetermined overhead rate equals estimated overhead costs divided by estimated activity base. Write this in the notes. This is chapter 19. Goddamn, so many notes. Predetermined overhead rate. Estimated overhead costs. Divided by estimated activity base. Applied overhead. Overhead rate times actual amount of activity base used. Actual amount of activity base used. Close to cost of goods sold for actual overhead. It's estimated overhead. Set predetermined overhead rate. Applying overhead to jobs requires a predetermined overhead rate, also called predetermined overhead allocation or application rate. This in turn requires an estimate of total overhead cost and an estimated activity base before the start of the period. Exhibit 19.2 shows how to compute a predetermined overhead rate. This rate is used during the period to apply estimated overhead to jobs based on each job's actual usage of the activity base. Exhibit 19.12, predetermined overhead rate. Predetermined overhead rate equals estimated overhead costs divided by the estimated activity base. The estimated activity base is the activity or allocation base. Estimated activity base. The activity or allocation base is a measure of production, such as direct labor or machine hours. The activity base should relate to the use of overhead costs. The choice of which activity base to use affects the accuracy of job costs, which it likely impacts prices set and other key decisions. Computing predetermined overhead rate. Let's compute Road Warriors' predetermined overhead rate. At the start of the year, Road Warriors estimated total direct labor costs of $125,000 and total overhead costs of $200,000. Its predetermined overhead rate follows. $200,000 divided by $125,000 equals 160% or 1.6 times of direct labor costs. All right, apply estimated overhead to jobs. Overhead is applied to each job based on the actual activity base used for that job. Applied overhead equals the predetermined overhead rate multiplied by actual activity base used. The activity base is direct labor cost for Road Warriors. Exhibit 19.13 shows overhead applied for its March production activity. Overhead costs for each job are often accumulated and recorded in one entry as shown. Applied overhead is credited to factory overhead. Then exhibit 19.13, overhead applied to jobs. We have job B 15, 16, 17, direct labor costs 1,000, 2,000, 1,200. Predetermined overhead rate 1.6 down the line. And applied overhead 1,600, 3,200, and $1,920 respectively, for a total of $6,720. March 31st, work in process inventory. That's moved to that. 6720. Let's move to work in process inventory. Then that's debited to work in process inventory, and then factory overhead is credited for $6,720. This is to apply the overhead at 160% direct labor. Factory overhead is a clearing or temporary account that is closed to zero at each period end. This entry is posted to the work in process inventory and the factory overhead accounts. Exhibit 19.14 shows these postings. The exhibit shows summary job cost sheets for all three jobs, and it shows a partial job cost sheet for job B15. Exhibit 19.14, posting overhead to accounts and job cost sheet. At this point, $6,720 of applied overhead has been posted to the work in process inventory and factory overhead accounts. The ending balance of $12,720 in the work in process inventory account equals the sum of the ending balances in the job cost sheets.
At the beginning of the year, a manufacturing company estimates it will incur $240,000 of overhead costs. The company applies overhead using machine hours and estimates it will use 1,600 machine hours for the year. During June, the company used 80 machine hours on job 1 and 70 machine hours on job 2. Compute the predetermined overhead rate. The predetermined overhead rate is calculated by taking the estimated overhead costs and dividing by the estimated activity base. The company has determined that machine hours drive the overhead costs. The base is the estimated machine hours used. $240,000 in estimated overhead costs divided by 1,600 estimated machine hours is a predetermined overhead rate of $150 per machine hour. Number 2, determine overhead applied in June to Job 1 and to Job 2. Job 1 used a total of 80 machine hours. 80 machine hours multiplied by the predetermined overhead rate of $150 per machine hour is total overhead applied to Job 1 of $12,000. Job 2 used fewer machine hours. 70 machine hours multiplied by $150 per hour results in a lower amount of overhead applied, $10,500. The total for the month, 150 hours multiplied by $150 per hour, is a total of $22,500. Number 3, prepare the journal entry to record overhead applied for June. Debit work in process inventory for the total applied, $22,500, and credit factory overhead.
Well, 46 minutes. Let's try again now. Record actual overhead. We should have applied or estimated overhead costs are reported on job cost sheets and in journal entries. Actual overhead costs are not reported on job cost sheets, but they are recorded in journal entries. Factory overhead includes indirect materials, indirect labor, and other overhead costs. These costs are reported from materials requisition forms or for indirect materials and from salary contracts or time tickets for indirect labor. Other sources of actual overhead costs include vouchers authorizing payment for factory items such as supplies and utilities, and journal entries for costs such as depreciation on factory assets. Actual overhead costs are reported with debits. The factory overhead account and actual overhead costs are reported with debits to the factory overhead account where we show these entries next. Water or something. Lou just woke up right now and I'm fucking tired. Go sleep. All right. Got a bite of pizza. That's lava. Oh yeah, we're ready. Non-manufacturing costs such as advertising and sales commissions are not overhead, but instead are period costs and reported on the income statement. Record indirect materials used. During March, road warriors incurred $550 of actual indirect materials costs, which leads to the following entry. Unlike the recording of direct materials, the actual indirect materials costs, Unlike the recording of direct materials, the actual indirect materials costs incurred are not recorded in work in process inventory and are not posted to job cost sheets. This entry is posted to the factory overhead and raw materials inventory accounts. So on March 31st, we have a factory overhead debit of $550 and a raw materials inventory credit for $550 to record the indirect materials used. Record indirect labor used. During March, road warriors incurred $1,100 of actual indirect labor costs, which leads to the following entry. Unlike the recording of direct labor, the actual indirect labor costs incurred are not recorded in the work in process inventory and are not posted to job cost sheets. This entry is posted to the factory overhead and factory wages payable accounts. For example, on March 31st, we have factory overhead that's debited for $1,100 and factory wages payable is credited for $1,100. This is to record indirect labor used. Record other overhead costs. During March, road warriors incurred $5,270 of actual other overhead costs. These costs often include items such as depreciation on factory equipment, factory building rent, factory utilities, expired factory insurance, and other costs indirectly related to production. These costs are recorded with a debit to factory overhead and credits to other accounts such as cash, accounts payable, utilities payable, and accumulated depreciation on factory equipment. The entry to record road warriors' actual other overhead costs for March follows. On March 31st, factory overhead is debited for $5,270. And then to balance the accounting equation, we credit accumulated depreciation for factory equipment for $2,400, rent payable for $1,620, utilities payable for $250, prepaid insurance for $1,000. And this is to record actual other overhead costs. This entry is posted to the factory overhead account and to the other accounts. These actual overhead costs are not recorded in work in process inventory and are not posted to job cost sheets. Only applied overhead is recorded in work in process inventory and posted to job cost sheets. So factory overhead, we have on the debit side, indirect materials for $550. Indirect labor for $1,100 and other overhead for $5,270. And then on the right side for credits, we have $6,720 of applied overhead.
A manufacturing company used $400 of indirect materials and $2,000 of indirect labor during the month. The company also incurred $1,200 for depreciation on factory equipment and $300 for factory utilities. Prepare the necessary journal entry. The factory overhead account is debited for all factory costs other than direct materials and direct labor. The factory overhead account is credited for the amount applied to production at the predetermined overhead rate. To record the actual factory overhead costs, we debit the factory overhead account. Indirect materials result in a debit to factory overhead and a credit to raw materials inventory. Indirect labor is a debit to factory overhead and a credit to factory wages payable. Depreciation on factory equipment is a debit to factory overhead and a credit to accumulated depreciation on the factory equipment. Factory utilities of $300 result in a debit to factory overhead and a credit to utilities payable. Total factory overhead incurred. The debit to factory overhead is $3,900.
Cost of, hold on. Come on, brain. Why are you getting so sleepy already? Do this, man. Power through, let's go. I wish reading was more stimulating, like have words pop out at me and show me pictures and shit. I don't know. Reading so boring. More stimulation, something more exciting. My mind would retain it more. Because by comparison, there's all this other stuff that's like more stimulating. I tend to remember that. Like this stuff's harder to remember because it's so boring. Like it doesn't stand out relative to other things I experienced in life. I know that applies to other people too. Just like stimulation everywhere, and then school it's like, oh, you gotta read this shit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you expect me to remember that? When I got all this other things my brain's like focused on. We're trying. Cost flows to financial statements. Exhibit 19.15 shows how costs for a manufacturing company flow to financial statements. We see that costs of direct materials used, direct labor used, and overhead applied flow through the work in process inventory and finished goods inventory balance sheet accounts. The cost of goods manufactured, or COGM, is computed on the schedule of cost of goods manufactured. When goods are sold, when goods are sold, their costs are transferred from finished goods inventory on the balance sheet to the income statement as cost of goods sold. Exhibit 19.15, cost flows and reports. We have a balance sheet here, the raw materials inventory, beginning purchases, raw materials available on debit side, direct materials on the credit side, and then ending. Work in process inventory, move the direct materials from the raw materials inventory to the work in process inventory. Beginning, direct materials, direct labor, and overhead applied on the debit side, and then cost of goods manufactured, or COGM, on the credit side, and then ending. COGM is moved to finished goods inventory. So yeah, beginning and COGM on the debit side, and then cost of goods sold on the credit side, and then ending, cost of goods sold is moved to the income statement, where we have sales, cost of goods sold, gross profit, selling expenses, general and administrative expenses, and net income. Predetermined overhead rate times actual activity base used. So there's a reference somewhere else. Yeah. For road warriors, the entries to record the flow of costs from work in process inventory to finished goods inventory for jobs B15 and B16, and from finished goods inventory to cost of goods sold for job B15 follow. On March 31st, finished goods inventory is debited for $9,300. Work in process inventory is credited for $9,300. Transfer cost of goods manufactured for jobs B15 and B16. March 31st, cost of goods sold is debited for $3,300. Finished goods inventory is credited for $3,300. This is to record the cost of goods sold for job B15. Sales revenue is also recorded for job B15. See Exhibit 19.17. Okay. Period costs, or selling expenses, and general administrative expenses do not impact inventory accounts. As a result, they do not impact cost of goods sold, and they are not reported on the schedule of cost of goods manufactured. They are reported on the income statement as operating expenses. Accounting for cost flows. The upper part of Exhibit 19.16 shows the flow of the direct materials, direct labor, and overhead costs through the inventory accounts, and eventually cost of goods sold. Each numbered cost flow reflects journal entries. Exhibit 19.16, job order cost flows and ending job cost sheets. Sales or accounts. So the lower part of Exhibit 19.16 shows job cost sheets at the period end. The total costs assigned to the job in process or job B17 equal the $3,420 balance in the work in process inventory. Costs assigned to the completed job B16 equal the $6,000 balance in finished goods inventory. The balances in raw materials inventory, work in process inventory, and finished goods inventory are reported on the end of period balance sheet. The cost assigned to the sold job B15 equals the $3,300 balance in cost of goods sold. This is reported on the income statement for the period. Exhibit 19.17 shows the journal entries. Each entry is numbered to link with the arrow lines in Exhibit 19.16. And Exhibit 19.17 concludes with the entry to record the sale of job B15 for $5,500. Exhibit 19.17 entries for job order costing. 1. Raw materials inventory debited for $2,750. Accounts payable credited for $2,750. This represents the acquired raw materials. 2. Work in process inventory is debited for $1,800. Raw materials inventory is credited for $1,800. This represents the direct materials used. Work in process inventory is debited for $4,200. Factory wages payable is credited for $4,200. This represents direct labor used. For factory overhead, the factory overhead is debited for $550. Raw materials is, this is step 4, sorry. Factory overhead, $550 debit. Raw materials inventory, $550 credit. And this represents indirect materials used. Step 5, factory overhead is debited for $1,100. Factory wages payable is credited for $1,100. This represents indirect labor used. Work in process inventory is debited, step 6, work in process inventory is debited for $6,720. Factory overhead is credited for $6,720. This is to apply overhead at 160% of direct labor. Times 1.6. Step 7, factory overhead is debited for $5,270. Then accumulation depreciation for factory equipment is credited for $2,400. Rent payable is credited for $1,600 and $1,620. Utilities payable is credited for $250. Prepaid insurance is credited for $1,000. This represents actual overhead costs. Step 8, finished goods inventory is debited for $9,300. Work in process inventory is credited for $9,300. This is to show a record. This is to record the completion of jobs B15 and B16. Step 9, cost of goods sold is a $3,300 debit and a finished goods inventory is a $3,300 credit. This is to record cost of goods sold for job B15. Step 10, accounts receivable is debited for $5,500 and sales is credited for $5,500. This is to record the sale of job B15. Actual overhead is debited to factory overhead. Applied overhead is credited to factory overhead. Actual overhead is debited to factory overhead. Applied overhead is credited to factory overhead. We're going to pick up on using job cost sheets for managerial decisions. Yay, so exciting. I got goosebumps. I'll be back.